Today we've got a great moldy food malicious compliance story. We'll get into that in a bit, but first, want me to wash my dishes? Oh, sure I will. My main has my photo and all, so here we are on a new account. This happened over 3 years ago, and while telling it to my friend, she laughingly said, "Such a malicious compliance." So decided to share here. When I first started to my very first corporate job, there was a kitchen full of utensils and fridge and oven and stove and a dishwasher. A full-fledged kitchen for employees to make tea, coffee, heat their meals, even cook. They said I can bring my own glasses and put them there or use the company's. Also, there was a woman who was working in the kitchen. Let's call her Nilly, since she puts rules willy-nilly like a bully. Second day of my job, dear Nilly told me, "Let me remind you that no one should ever leave their dirty dishes in the sink." I was surprised by the claim, since I'm new and don't know a single crap. I thought this might be her way of bullying, or it might actually be true. So I smiled and asked if this means I have to wash my own glasses. She said, "Yes. Don't make me repeat it twice, honey." Let me remind you, there's a dishwasher. If she isn't cleaning the dishes, her only remaining job is vacuum the office once a week and bring tea or coffee to chiefs, to meetings, and to managers. So I decided to gather information and wait on it. Apparently, Nilly has been working in the company for 20 years and knows the CEO. She knows how he drinks his tea, how he drinks his coffee, when he drinks them, what he eats with his coffee and tea. She knows all of them. If I know one thing, that is never fight a fight with the person who knows how your boss likes his coffee, especially if you're replaceable. So fight was not an option. Cool. I also learned that once a week, CEO brings a bag of fruits to the kitchen to share in the company. Apparently, he has a fruit garden and goes there for weekends, and she would take fruits to her house at the end of the day. Old employees knew that. They would take 1 or 2 in the day. That's how I learned this. She said to me I can get one from, but it is hers. So I refused the first time offer, thinking she bought it. Then learned that it was brought by the CEO. I think she implied that the CEO brought it to her and she was generous enough to share it with us peasants. But this is my interpretation of her statement. One thing about me, I look young and naive. I look dumb, as if there is some missing component in my brain. Cue malicious compliance. From my desk, I could partially see the kitchen if I turn around. So on the day of the fruit delivery, I was constantly checking the kitchen. When CEO came in, I counted 30 and went in as well. To wash my glasses, of course. I went in and said hi to everyone. This was my first time seeing CEO, so he said, "You must be new." Kindly and respectfully informed who I am, and he told me who he was. I said, "Sir, I've checked the company before entering and knew him," which he liked. After I turned to wash my dishes, he asked me what I was doing, and I said, "Oh, I was informed that all the staff wash their own dishes." At the same time, our Nilly said I must have been mistaken on that while laughing and taking the sponge and glasses out of my hand. I said, "But you," as if shocked, and cut myself as if realization hit me, then smiled like she's my best friend. Of course, I didn't stop there. I looked at the fruits. CEO told me to take some fruits, added that he brought them to the company so all the staff could enjoy. I haven't said anything, but from my expression, CEO asked what was wrong. I told him nothing and said, "I always thought they were Nilly's since..." Then I just smiled and asked if I can take a plate of them. With a huge plate of fruits accompanied by a huge smile, I went to my desk, shared them with my team. I don't even like fruits. Couple hours later, I went to the kitchen, and our dear Nilly told me I had misunderstood things, and washing dishes was her job and I shouldn't mistake it again. And added that the fruits were for everyone to share and I should have taken more if I wanted. I stupidly said, "Oh, I didn't know, and how sorry I am to cause her trouble," with a sorry smile. Guess you never had to wash dishes and had fruits to eat every day. If your answer is Cleopatra, probably yes, but also me. Nilly would also bring tea and coffee to me from time to time, if someone she served did not want to drink. I would thank her with a huge smile and take it. Apparently, she does this to all the employees she likes. I called them fruits instead of specifying what they were because CEO would bring apples, oranges, tangerines, pears, even sweet cherries. I don't remember what was the specific fruit that day. If anything, friend or not, knowing each other or not, I think this showed the CEO that maybe I've been a little too hands-off on the operations here. Maybe I should stroll around a little bit more and make sure everything is in tip-top shape. Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you guys enjoy awesome stories of malicious compliance, why not hit those like and subscribe buttons down below? That said, our next story is husband tries to warn neighbors about their landscaping, gets told to mind his own business. Some background, my husband is pretty handy. Prior to COVID, he had done several flip houses as a fun side gig. It's what he loves to do. And he became very familiar with a ton of city codes. During COVID, seems everyone was suddenly buying houses to flip out of boredom and prices skyrocketed, so he put that on hold. So then he started doing household repairs and upgrades, building fences, etc. around the neighborhood as well. To get a better understanding of the neighborhood HOA bylaws and whatnot, he joined the HOA Architectural Committee. Through that, he learned all there was to know about what was allowed and what was not, how the process worked, how to work around things, etc. Long story short, my husband was very knowledgeable in what to do and not do, and various processes with the neighborhood and the city. Our next door neighbor decided they were going to start landscaping their backyard, and they, I guess, planned to make theirs as similar to our backyard as possible. Problem was, despite being our next door neighbors, our land was quite different. For one thing, behind our house was a bunch of brush and pine trees maybe 3 to 4 feet from the lake that's at the back of the house. We didn't have to do a whole lot to clear the area, but the brush on their property was about 1/3 of their yard. I'd say 10 feet from the water. Also, the way the houses on our street are, the land naturally made like a valley, where the house to our right is at the top, we're in the middle, and the next 2 houses are at the bottom before it very quickly rises again. First thing the neighbors did was cut down all the trees in their backyard. They were not small trees either, but 4-story tall trees or more. Husband and neighbor were talking about the backyard plans when my husband casually mentioned he was surprised the city gave him permission to cut down so many trees. In our city, you have to have an arborist give permission to cut down any trees that were X feet tall. Neighbor first said it wasn't the city's business what he did with his backyard, then told my husband to mind his own business. Okay, fair enough. Then they started putting up the retaining wall to bring it up to level with our property, which would have been about 7 to 8 feet tall. Basically, they were just stacking a bunch of cinder blocks. My husband uneasily asked if their landscapers had ever done a retaining wall like that, and if the city approved it. City says that if a retaining wall is over 5 feet tall, you need a structural engineer to come out. Neighbor said again it wasn't any of the city's business what he did to his yard, and for my husband to mind his own business. While they're filling up the backyard to bring theirs level to ours, the landscapers are dumping all the dirt, gravel, and sand in the street, blocking a little over half the road. Several of the neighbors who had trucks would just hop the curb, but other neighbors with smaller cars were mad. Before my husband could ask if they could put the dirt and stuff in their driveway instead of the road like everyone else, neighbor went off on my husband to freak right off. Well, okay then. My husband let them continue working and didn't say a word as they started constructing a 10-foot tall fence, which was against HOA regulations. Fences couldn't be taller than 6 feet. Between them starting construction 6 days a week before 7 a.m. and them blocking the road, I guess someone had had enough. Next thing I know, city officials are out there putting a big butt sign in the yard saying all construction was to be halted until further notice. It wasn't us, but my husband found out through the architectural committee that someone had complained about the noise and the road blockage to the HOA, who came out to investigate, saw everything they had done, and then reported them to the city. They got a hefty fine for every tree stump the city official found. The structural engineer said the retaining wall was not sound and had to be redone, and it had to have regular inspections during its build. The HOA also told them that not only did they have to take down their 10-foot tall fence, but as they did not get prior approval, and because it was not an approved design, the HOA also hit them with a hefty fine. Initially, neighbor came after us for tattling, but we told them it wasn't us, as nothing they did affected us in any way. Our kids are early risers, so even starting before 7 didn't bother us. My husband then said he tried to warn them this would happen, but neighbor told him to freak off and mind his own business, and he did. Landscaping had started on Black Friday, was shut down for 3 weeks while I guess they got things sorted out with the city and HOA. Their backyard is still not finished. Honestly, these people were morons for going on and doing this, and having this backwoods, we live in the country, they can't tell me what I can do with my land knowing that you are in an HOA. Like, you were just like setting up the dominoes for somebody to knock them over, including that 10-foot retaining wall. One time an HOA was a semi-helpful thing, I suppose. Our next story is, you won't let me tell you the food you bought is moldy? Okay, you can just eat it then. This isn't my story, but a coworker I have. I work in an airport restaurant. You can imagine we get a lot of stuck up and benchy people who don't see us as humans. We work our butts off to provide the best service we can under the circumstances. Working in an airport setting with unpredictable passenger numbers. For context, our restaurant is split into 2 separate cafes. Mine is the one before TSA. The one relevant to the story happened past TSA, meaning this was a passenger that either went through TSA or came off a plane from the departure lounge. The kitchen staff hand-prepare trays of vegetables with a portion of hummus. One of those vegetables is sliced cucumbers. Today, my assistant manager, who runs the kitchen past security, came up to me and told me I needed to check the trays I had for sale because they found mold on the cucumbers in their trays even when they haven't reached the expiration we have for prepared fresh foods, such as the tray in question. I subsequently pulled my trays because they did in fact have mold on them. Enter Act 2 of this story. He came to me about 30 minutes later to tell me this part. Back in post-security, past TSA, a lady had bought a vegetable tray. Being the good assistant manager he is, he went over to make sure it was a fresh tray. She didn't even let him get more than one word out before telling him, "Go away, leave me alone." Now, he isn't a mean person at all. In fact, he makes the most conversation with all the customers more than the rest of our staff, including me. He took one look at the tray she purchased. It was moldy. He made a couple more attempts to try and tell her that her food had mold on it so she could get a fresh one, to no avail. He's now at a loss and just lets whatever happens, happen. She ate the whole dang thing, cucumbers and all, with 0 complaints. Just goes to show, when an employee comes up to you, hear out the employee just in case they have something important to tell you, such as, "Ma'am, you are about to consume mold. How about you go choose another tray free of charge?" I feel like this is one of those situations that even if she's like yelling at him to go away, he has like such an importance to make sure that she knows there is mold in that, because either way it's going to reflect badly. Even if she was totally irate, said go away, and this person did give up, and it's revealed there was mold in there and she went and complained and made a whole big deal about it. I guess the one good thing is this happened past TSA, right? They're probably not going to be around for very long, especially not if they keep eating moldy stuff. Our next story is, you sure you know how to tie down that load? Okay, have it your way. A few years ago, I pulled into a lumberyard parking lot on my way to pick up a super small item. As I was walking through the parking lot on the way to the store, I saw this guy tying about $3,000 worth of composite decking into the top of his truck rack. Now, if you know anything about composite decking, you know that it is expensive, heavy, and super slick, especially when multiple boards are together. This guy was using a rope to tie this down. Now, don't get me wrong, ropes are great, and there are some awesome knots out there, and this guy could have used all of them, but a rope simply wasn't going to cut it, no matter what fancy knots he knew. On my way, in a polite way, I told the guy, "Hey, just so you know, those are really slippery when stacked. A rope isn't going to cut it. You really need to get a couple of ratchet straps for that." "Don't worry, I got it," he replied in the most smug way he could muster. Okay, his issue. So I went to buy my thing. Well, since it was only one thing, I was back in my truck in 3 minutes. And it turns out, I was behind this guy leaving the driveway. As the front of his truck dipped into the gutter, $3,000 worth of expensive composite decking slides right off the top of his truck, completely obliterates his hood, and fans out across the boulevard. As I drove past, I honked, smiled, and waved. After all, he clearly wanted me to mind my own business, so I did. In that situation, you can't help but just kind of laugh at the guy. You saw their situation, you warned them the best you could? I mean, that just sucks, but hey, you gotta know what you're doing when you transport $3,000 worth of supplies, right? Not gonna lie, if I were in OP's shoes, I think I'd still feel bad about it, even though I warned the guy and he waved me off in the most smug way possible. That still absolutely blows. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another awesome malicious compliance story, check out that video on the left. Or if you missed my latest video, check out that video on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.